ਚਾਹੀਦੇ
ਉਹ ਮਾਰ
ਉਹ ਭੈਣ ਚ ਮਾਰੀ ਓਏ
ਉਹ ਮਾਰ
ਉਹਦੇ ਲੰਬਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਓਏ
ਉਹ ਭੈਣ ਚ
Back in July, in episodes 159 and 160, I highlighted some instances of what I believe to be politically motivated selective enforcement of laws. In episode 159, we looked at some things that happened at the Toronto Pride Parade that, in my view, were clearly crimes, but no one was charged because of political affiliation. And we also looked at the riots that were ongoing in France at that time. Well, now we're back. It's September, and we have more examples in Canada of politically motivated selective enforcement of the law, which, in my view, is a prelude to anarchy. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. Selective enforcement of the law, especially when it's motivated by political ideology, is something that I've spoken of a number of times on this channel, something that I've warned of is highly dangerous to what's supposed to be a free and democratic society, but would be dangerous to any society because, as I've spoken of in the past, justice, the rule of law, the equal application of the laws to everyone in a society is essential to any society to function properly, regardless of what form of government it has. Now, here in early September of 2023, I've seen a number of disturbing and very obvious examples that, in my view, are politics-based selective enforcement of the law. Or, in one case, actually enforcing the law as it's in the books, but the law itself is essentially race-based sentencing. So, the clip that I played at the very beginning of this episode, that's actually something that happened last year. That was a brawl that involved a sword in Brampton. You could see in that very brief clip that there were a number of people who were throwing punches or kicks, and then one individual taking swings with a sword. Now, as I understand it, only one person was ever charged in that incident. We will also talk about the Eritrean street battle that happened in just a few days ago in Calgary. And then we'll finally speak about a case of incest in Nova Scotia where the father who abused his daughter received no jail because of the color of his skin. But first, let's go back to this Brantford case. As I say, it's a year old, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is still part of a continuing trend that we see. So the headline here from City News Everywhere in Toronto is Police Make Arrest in Sword-Swinging Brampton Brawl. So it says, Peel Regional Police say they've made an arrest in connection to a wild sword-swinging brawl in Brampton that was caught on video. So they arrested a 25-year-old man, Harjot Singh, from Woodstock, and he was facing 2 counts of assault with a weapon for his alleged role in the melee. Notice singular, only one person was charged out of this brawl. Fast forward a year to September of 2023, let's have a look at an extended clip of what I've called a street battle going on between rivaling Eritrean factions of Eritrean immigrants belonging to different factions.
No. No. Yeah. No.
ममता वेट करे कर वेट
और गुरविंदर को कॉल करी
वो फिर स्टार्ट हो गए ही स्टार्टिंग बैक अगेन
Notice the conspicuous presence of Calgary police officers with their neon yellow hats. No charges were laid at the time of this. So you can see they're not intervening, they're not doing anything, which is a far cry from what we saw at the Freedom Convoy, where although it went on for several weeks before the police moved in, it was completely peaceful. No one was throwing anything, no one was attacking anyone, yet the police moved in there with riot police, horses. You know the story. We've covered it before. But let's look at what the news has said about how Calgary police's approach to this. So I have here a CBC News article from September the 3rd titled, "Violent conflict in Calgary involving 150 people may be linked to clashes within Eritrean community, police." So 11 people were taken to hospital by EMS, but notice the conspicuous absence of anyone having been arrested in that headline. So it says here that Calgary police are investigating a violent conflict between two groups involving around 150 people Saturday night that may be linked to clashes within the Eritrean community. Police responded to an incident in northeast Falcon Ridge at around 5 p.m. Saturday after reports of two groups with opposing views engaging in violence. It was a very violent event, says the superintendent, saying that they've assigned detectives to investigate, and that's what they'll do, adding that police believe some people from the groups had stashed weapons prior to the incident. But again, no one was arrested on the scene. If we look at this article from the Calgary Herald, titled, "There Has to Be Consequences. Falcon Ridge Brawl Leaves Residents Shaken." There's spontaneous reaction, and then there's well-coordinated, predetermined outcome. This is the latter, said Councillor Raj Dhaliwal. So we have this Ward 5 councillor, Raj Dhaliwal. He's upset about this, saying there has to be consequences. Again, there's mention of police responding to this brawl involving 150 people, where they were using sticks, rocks, and bats as weapons. 10 people were hospitalized. There's a bit more detail here, saying it happened at a festival for the local Eritrean diaspora. Calgary police say that charges are pending, but no one's actually been arrested. Why didn't the police move in with riot gear to violently crush this street battle and stop it in its tracks? I believe that the answer to that can be found in who it was that was engaging in this combat. And as we've seen in those articles, there's reference to Eritrean immigrants being involved. It seems that in Canada in 2023, if you weren't born in Canada, you have more rights and a certain immunity from the law versus those who were born here and have lived here their whole lives. In my view, this is another example of selective enforcement of the law. Now, the counter-argument, certainly from Calgary Police, would be, well, we intend to lay charges. We're investigating, we will lay charges. Time will tell whether that's the case, but again, compare and contrast Calgary Police's response to people throwing rocks and hitting each other with baseball bats to that same police force's response to a young man going ice skating back in 2020. That was covered very early in Don't Talk TV. I believe that was in fact episode 2, although I didn't look that up before filming this. Look at the link, look at the description below, and in the show description we'll put a link to my video where we got the footage from that you're seeing on the screen. This then takes me to the incest case, which is application of the law as written. So this isn't selective enforcement, but this is an example par excellence of the race-based sentencing regime in Canada that I've spoken about in previous episodes. So I have here a National Post article entitled Jamie Sarkonak, House Arrest for Impregnating Daughter Result of Race-Based Sentencing. Nova Scotia's lenient court system hurts the very communities it tries to protect. Now this is very interesting because you know stuff is getting real when mainstream/legacy media is using terms like race-based sentencing. Although I would note, this isn't Nova Scotia's lenient court system. This is from the Federal Criminal Code, which we'll look at in a moment. But here's what happened. In the summer of 2019, a baby was born in Nova Scotia with serious medical complications and significant developmental delays. Concerns by medical geneticists led to police becoming involved. When the mother, 23, was discovered sexting her father during a visit to the neonatal intensive care unit, it all made sense. The parents were a father-daughter pair with a 31-year age gap between them. Both were intellectually disabled. Their child, also disabled, has since been placed in foster care. So the father was charged with the crime of incest. Shortly afterward, he confessed that he first, I hate the term slept with here, that he first raped his daughter when she was 19 or 20. Normally, incest would be punished with a jail sentence, 2 years on the low end, and 14 years maximum. Applying progressive sentencing principles, a majority of the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal decided late August that the father should only have to serve 2 years of house arrest. More reasonably, the dissenting judge believed that 4 years in jail was apt. Even 4 years in jail would be extremely low. The Supreme Court, in a case called Friesen, has fairly recently come out with guidelines saying that these sorts of crimes need to be punished much more harshly, and I see sentences well in excess of 4 years for less serious crimes than this on a regular basis. But let's look at the criminal code provisions that were in play here. As I said, this is a federal thing, not a Nova Scotia thing. Section 718 of the Criminal Code of Canada lays out certain fundamental principles of sentencing. 718.2 lays out a number of other sentencing principles. So under Section A, they speak of that a sentence should be increased or reduced to account for any relevant aggravating or mitigating circumstances relating to the offense of the offender, and without limiting the generality of the foregoing, they then list a number of aggravating factors under Section A, and those are all to be deemed aggravating circumstances. Then we get to subsection E. All available sanctions other than imprisonment that are reasonable in the circumstances and consistent with the harm done to victims or to the community should be considered for all offenders, with particular attention to the circumstances of Aboriginal offenders. Now, while that specifies Aboriginal offenders, it has certainly been expanded by the courts to cover all, quote, racialized, unquote, individuals. So essentially what that means is anyone who's not white. Although that doesn't seem to be universally applied, certain groups seem to be considered more racialized than others, and it would seem that Aboriginal people and African Canadian people are the ones who fall the most firmly into the ambit of that section for race-based sentencing, and that's what we see in the case that I just cited. So it's a perfect example of why race-based sentencing is a problem. And this goes back to something that I discussed with Mr. Bernier on the live stream a few weeks ago, where we grew up in a time where the principle was that people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. We seem to be getting now to a time period where everything is based on the color of the skin. And if it's white, you're going to be dealt with more harshly. If it's not white, there seems to be a tendency to be treated less harshly, or maybe not even punished by the law at all. So as I've highlighted and continue to highlight on episodes, this is something of great concern. And that's why I keep bringing it up, because this is something that people need to be aware of and that needs to change, but it can't change if people don't know about it. And a lot of these things have been going on for a long time because people don't know about it. So this video is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call another lawyer or myself. My contact information is listed below. We always welcome suggestions for show topics. I do intend to get to a number that we've been given recently, but there's always things that come up and that seem that are quite timely that we want to deal with, but things are definitely being planned. So keep suggestions coming. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, following us on social media, and of course, specifically to YouTube. As I've said before, if we get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of 2023, I will regrow my handlebar mustache.